Good morning, 3C. This is Mr. Wong speaking. Today we'll be going through the homework for yesterday, which is the review exercise as well as activity 5.1, only for page 30. And then after that, we'll go through a few examples of materials on the SLS lesson. And after that, I'll leave you to do page 31, which is the second part of activity 5.1, yourself about classification of materials. All right, so let's go through the answers for yesterday first. All right, so you have actually 12 things here. Some are living things, some are non-living things. You should see, you should have realized that there are actually two non-living things here. Later on, we'll go on and see. So your job yesterday was to put a tick. Okay, so because that's what they want you to do, they want you to put a tick if the answer is yes. Okay, so if it's yes, you put a tick. Simple as that. Okay, so let's go down. I don't think you need to refer to the diagram because the names are already written here. Roughly you know what they are. Okay, so let's start taking. Okay, all right, I'm gonna use a red pen. All right, okay, let's go one by one. Okay, I'll do pretty fast because they are quite straightforward. You realize that all these first four columns, okay, which is you realize that this one, this one, this one, and this one, does it need air, food, and water? Does it grow? Does it respond to change? Does it reproduce? These are all the characteristics of living things. Let's write it down here. These are what we have learned in term 1, the characteristics of living things. And all living things have all these four characteristics. Okay, so these are the four characteristics of living things. Alright, I'm just going to put it over here so you can see. Alright, so these are the four characteristics of living things. Alright, right. So these four things need air, food, and water to survive, grow, reproduce, respond to change. These are the four characteristics of living things that we have learned in term 1. So as long as they have all these four, it is a living thing. If it doesn't have one of them, it is not a living thing. Okay, because all living things must have all these four characteristics. That's why we call them living thing. It's not whether they can move, or not whether they can eat, or not whether they can breathe, but just these four characteristics of living things. So with that, we will look at all the 12. So let's go through quickly because some are straightforward. Toy bear. Toy bear is not a living thing, so I'm not going to put a tick at all. So nope, it doesn't need air and water, doesn't grow, doesn't respond to change, doesn't reproduce. So it is not a living thing. So I'm going to leave this blank because I just need to put a tick. Okay, so ferns wise, ferns, yes, it needs air and water, so I'll put a tick. Okay, it grows, yes. Respond to change, yes. Produce, yes. Living thing. Snake, yes, it needs. It grows. Respond to change. Reproduce, yes. So you realize that for all the living things, they have everything across the table. Pencil, same thing. Pencil doesn't need air and water. Pencil doesn't grow. Pencil doesn't respond to change. Pencil doesn't reproduce. So these two are actually your non-living thing. Right, so I'm going to draw an arrow out. This is okay, maybe on the other side will be better. Okay, so you realize that this and this are non-living things. So let's write it down. Non-living things. Alright. Right. Okay. Alright. So these are the only two that are non-living things, the rest are living things. So with that, I think it's quite straightforward. Mushrooms has all four. I'm just gonna tick everything. Bacteria has all four because it's a living thing. Squirrel has all four. It's a living thing. Butterfly has all four. It's a living thing. Fish as well, definitely a living thing. Frogs as well, definitely a living thing. Okay, so you realize all the living things have all the four characteristics of living things. Okay, not even one cross. Okay, because living things must have all these four characteristics. So the rest are living things. Only toy bear is a non-living thing. Only pencil is a non-living thing. The rest should take everything. This is quite simple. Okay, now let's go to the next one. Okay, so read the question and fill in the blanks. This is quite straightforward. All living things need air, food, and water to survive. So we have your air, and then your food, and then your water. Okay, so animals can be classified into 6 groups. So what are the 6 groups? Remember Fambi got F. Let me put in my A. A stands for amphibians. Make sure you know how to spell. Okay, FAR. I have my reptiles. M, mammals. Mammals is missing, so I'm going to put in my mammals over here. Mammals spelled with a double M. And then B is here, and I. I stands for insects. So Fambi. Okay, so next one. Plants can be classified into 2 different types. So there are 2 different types of plant that we have learnt. One is called the flowering plants. And the other is what we call the non-flowering plants. So this is basically a test of whether have you understood or learned well for term 1. Okay, so flowering and non-flowering plants. And then the last one, bacteria and fungi are 2 groups of living things that live on other blank. Alright, so bacteria and fungi are 2 groups of living things that live on other living things. Or I also accept another answer. Okay, so we know that bacteria feeds on other living things. We know that fungi feeds on other living things, or even dead things, or things that are once alive. So I actually also allow another answer, which is called organisms. Okay, basically any living thing, big or small. Okay, so you can either write living things or organisms. Both are fine with me. So there are 2 different answers, but both I accept. Okay, so make sure you get the corrections done. This is basically quite straightforward. Alright, now we go on to the next part. Activity 5.1. Okay, so from the lesson yesterday, you should have realized there are actually in total 7 different materials that you have learnt. Alright, and in this exercise, we'll also cover all the 7 materials that you have learned so far in the slides and the lesson yesterday. Alright, so I have 5 different items. I have my vase, tire, table, spoon, and towel. Okay, so I've written down all the 5 objects here, and I want to know the material. You realize there is this bracket S. Okay, when you have bracket S, means it can either be made of one material or it can be made from more than 2 or more. Okay, it depends on what you're talking about. So it doesn't mean there's only one blank here, means only one material. Sometimes it can be made of 2. Especially later on when you see the tire, the table, the spoon, you realize it's not only one material. And if you look at the things around you, things are actually made out of different materials put together. Okay, a table, you have metal parts, you have a glass part. For a door, you have a metal part and a wooden part. For your handphone, there's a glass part and there's a plastic part and there's metal parts inside also. So things in the world actually are made of different materials and not just one material. Alright, so with that, let's go through. If you look at the vase, okay, if you know about this is actually made of the material called ceramic. Okay, so you can actually it doesn't matter whether your vase is the first item, it can be the last item, it doesn't matter as long the material is correct. Okay, so for the vase, it's only made out of ceramic, there are no other materials. For the tire, you realize, if you zoom in onto the tire, you realize there's a center part, which is the rim of the wheel, and then after that you got the black part, which is the tire itself. So the tire is actually made out of 2 materials. Let's talk about from inside out. Okay, so first you have the metal rim, that's the inside, and then you also have the black part, which is the rubber part. Okay, so if you touch a tire before, you realize it feels like your eraser. It's like very rubbery texture to it. Alright, so the tire is actually made out of metal and rubber. This tire that I'm talking about. This table, I think it's quite straightforward. Most of you have got it. Okay, so table, the bottom part is made of wood and the top part is made of glass. Alright, and then for the spoon, you realize that there are also two different materials. If you look at the place where we put inside our mouth, the part that you use to scoop, this part is made of metal, but you realize the handle is not made of metal, the handle is made of plastic. Okay, and the last part, towel. Towel is made from fabric and only fabric for this case. Alright, some of you talk about cotton. Okay, let me just write the word cotton down. Okay, some of you, instead of writing fabric, you say it is cotton. I'll put it aside. Okay, but actually, is it correct to write cotton? It is actually wrong to write cotton. Okay, why so? Because cotton is actually an example of the material. Okay, so let me just write this down. It's actually an example of fabric. Okay, connect them together. Okay, so cotton is actually an example of fabric. Okay, in a sense, it's not the group of material that we're studying for this topic. There are 7 different materials or 7 different groups of material: ceramic, metal, rubber, wood, glass, metal, plastic, and fabric. Okay, so you only know these 7 different groups of material. So under each group there are examples. For example, fabric, you have cotton, you have silk, you have polyester, you have different other things that can be considered under fabric. For metal, you have steel, iron, aluminium, copper, gold, silver. Okay, there are many examples of metal, but metal is the group. Okay, it's like when we talk about mammals, there's lion, tiger, all these are examples. Okay, so for metal, metal is the group. Individual metals are examples like iron and steel, while fabric is the group. The example would be like cotton, silk, and whatever fabric materials that you can come across. Okay, so for the last part, are all objects made of the same material? The keyword here is same. Are they all made of the same material? The answer is no. Simple as that. And oh no. Okay, alright, so this is the answers for yesterday. Today we will proceed on to finish up page 31, which is the second part of activity 5.1, and later on I will guide you through in the next video. Thank you for your attention. I'll catch you later.